Right now, though, I want to welcome to the program Dr. Tim Wheeler with Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. Dr. Wheeler, thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Cam.
You bet.
Congratulations on your new dog.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a cute dog. All of a sudden, I'm much less interesting to my children now that we have a new puppy around. There's this American Journal of Public Health that has a new article, and it appears that this is getting a lot of attention within the public health arena. Changing the constitutional landscape for firearms, the U.S. Supreme Court's recent Second Amendment decisions. And this is basically an attempt, I guess, to educate members of the health community on ways that they can now promote gun control, not by going after our constitutional rights, but by claiming that there is some sort of public health mandate, just as we go after salt and trans fats and sugary soft drinks, that we can lump guns in with those type of products.
Well, yes, Cam. This article was written actually by some veterans in the public health anti-gun movement. John Vernick, Daniel Webster, Stephen Terrett. These folks are researchers. They're not physicians. Pretty sure all of them are not physicians. Stephen Terrett is an attorney. Practicing public health mainly requires attorneys to figure out how to force people to do what they want, rather than doctors who, through their supposed knowledge, advise us to live healthy ways. But anyway, this is the latest attempt in a long history by these people of trying to use the public health argument to limit our constitutional rights. And it's funny that a group of public health people should be talking about Supreme Court decisions, but that's exactly what they do in this public health article, supposedly public health article. Essentially, they talk about the Heller and the McDonald Supreme Court decisions as affirming the individual right to own firearms as outlined in the Second Amendment, and its incorporation specifically to state and local governments in the subsequent McDonald case last year. But their whole purpose in this article is to identify loopholes that are specific, that are explicit in the language of those decisions, those Supreme Court decisions, and to advise public health researchers to use those loopholes to try to do what they can to limit the application of the Second Amendment in the United States.
Yeah, and so much of this is written in such a way, and I think to turn off a lot of casual readers. I don't know if actually the American Journal of Public Health has many casual readers, but my eyes were kind of glazing over as I'm reading this article. But there were a couple of lines that stuck out at me. For instance, laws that focus upstream, as public health professionals often advocate, on gun makers and sellers rather than gun buyers and owners, may be less likely to present Second Amendment problems. So in other words, you might not be able to go directly after gun owners, but you can go after the gun makers and you can go after the retailers, and that's a way to choke off legitimate access to firearms by law-abiding Americans.
Yes, Cam, and this whole idea of going so-called upstream in the pathological chain is an old public health idea, and it's really an old saw that these folks have been trying to bring out and use for a good 20 years now. To me, it indicates that they really don't have any more arrows in their quiver. This is sort of like just an old theme that they keep harping on. They tried this years ago. They tried, going the route of trying to declare firearms a consumer product, for example, and saying that they were an unsafe consumer product and that the federal government had an interest in regulating these so-called unsafe consumer products called guns. Well, they got absolutely stomped on by Congress. Any number of congressmen from both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, lined up to excoriate these legislators who were trying to pass this kind of law to increase so-called consumer protection against firearms. And this is essentially the same kind of thing. I think that this article describes a desperate attempt, a last gasp recommendation of the public health anti-gunners to rally the troops. And I think that they're going to have the same success this time around as they did with these techniques back in the 1990s. And that was no success at all.
You know, I hope that you're right, and I believe that you are. I mean, we've seen the Gallup poll that came out recently showing support for new gun control legislation at historic low levels. The public does not support a ban on semi-automatic firearms. Public, going back 50 years, you've seen this amazing reversal where, in 1959, over 60% of Americans supported the idea of a ban on handguns, and now it's down to like 23%. And I'm also kind of curious because I think we're also starting to see a little bit of pushback against these things like trans fat bans, salt bans, telling us, you can't bring your kids cupcakes to school anymore. The public health push into our private lives, as you say, has been going on for a long time, and this may be the second or third go-around as they try to use the public health debate in terms of restricting our gun rights. But I think Americans are kind of getting fed up, generally speaking, with being told you have to give up things you like, you have to give up things that are your rights from a public health perspective or a common good perspective.
That's right, Cam, and especially the first point that you made, about the polls, the recent Gallup poll coming out saying that gun control is at its lowest ebb of popularity. I am reminded of a piece of advice that constitutional law professor Eugene Volokh told us a couple of years ago at one of the gun rights policy conferences. He says, he was talking about the Heller decision, about the McDonald decision, and he said, you can get all of the court decisions or try to get the court in your favor on the gun rights issue, but remember, there is no substitute for elections, which is another way of stating Abraham Lincoln's principle that public sentiment or public opinion is everything in determining the law.
Absolutely right. Well, Dr. Wheeler, again, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, sir. And I'm guessing this is not going to be the last of these journals that we see. But as you say, you think this is a pretty desperate attempt to try to change the debate?
I think it is, Cam. I'm not seeing anything new. I'm not seeing any new people making these statements in the public health community. These are the same old actors. But I do see lots of new pro-gun organizations that have sprung up just in the last 10 or 15 years. Ohioans for Concealed Carry. They weren't around when Vernick and Terrett started their war against gun owners. Cal Guns Foundation out here in California, who have done an immense amount of good for gunners. The Appleseed Project. I see new pro-gun people and groups springing up all the time. But I think that the public health anti-gunners are pretty much fading away, in spite of this recent article.
All right, Dr. Wheeler, thanks again, sir. I really appreciate you coming on the program, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, Cam.
All right, Dr. Tim Wheeler with Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership here on Cam and Company.